Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Founder in Focus. I'm here with Laura Munkholm from Walla, one of the social leverage portfolio companies, to talk about it. And welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and the short notice too. So let's just dive right in with give me some of the background on Walla.
Absolutely. So Walla is a studio management platform built for the boutique fitness industry. So for those listening that are not super familiar with the boutique fitness industry, this is yoga studios, Pilates studios, everything from CrossFit and HIIT to dance studios. It's an industry that's been booming, absolutely booming over the last decade, and obviously had a pretty significant hit with COVID. Um, but an industry that has certainly been on the rebound over the last 6 months. And so we are a software platform that does client management, scheduling, billing, and everything related to running your business for the studio owner. So excited to get it out into the world.
Yeah, that's excellent. When did you start up?
So I guess ideation kind of started or was going for a while before we officially launched the company, which I'm sure isn't uncommon. But we officially became a business right around when COVID started. Funny enough, I think we formed in March 2020. So
Yeah, right at the episode, right at the beginning of
yep.
yeah. So I guess that probably presented quite a few challenges, particularly when it came to attaining new clients and raising capital.
Yeah, it was interesting. I actually look at it as a huge blessing for us because so much of the work that goes into building a software platform is behind the scenes for a while, right? We spent a solid 8 or 9 months really just starting with the foundation of the software, bringing on developers, and really not talking to studios as much at the beginning. I was very blessed to be out of the industry. I've been working in the boutique fitness industry for quite a few years. So from the perspective of knowing what the need was and really being able to address the specifics that the customer was really struggling with, we had a really good picture of that. And my partner, Doug, came out of the industry as well, had spent some time working with studios and really understood what some of the pain points were. And his background as an operator really helped out in getting us off the ground. And yeah, I think the COVID aspect of it gave us quite a bit of insight into how the industry was going to be pivoting, shifting, and really just kind of vaulting itself forward from a digital perspective. So we were pretty lucky from a timing perspective.
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit about coming from the fitness industry.
Mhm.
Is this your first entrepreneurial adventure, so to speak?
This is my second, actually. My first was a little different. It was more in the management consulting area. So I actually started working in the boutique fitness industry as a yoga teacher alongside my sales career a while ago and really enjoyed it. And over time, the studio owners I worked with would constantly say things like, gosh, how do you sell so many memberships while you're here? Or how did you figure out how to change that in our system? We've been struggling with it for weeks. So I just took an interest in, the actual operations and behind the scenes workings of a studio business and applied my sales knowledge and kind of background in that area whenever I was physically in the four walls of the studio teaching classes. Um, and then I ultimately was offered a job running a large yoga studio here. I'm based out of San Diego, here in San Diego. And it was an awesome opportunity to really dive in, have to get my hands dirty in the software, understanding the platforms that really ran the studio and the scheduling aspect. Um, and from there, just fell in love with the business of fitness. I kind of dove in and committed myself to learning everything there was about the different platforms that supported yoga, fitness, gyms, and ultimately started a management consulting firm where I worked with hundreds of different studios all over the world, developing their businesses, understanding their business models, running KPIs, teaching them how to design sales processes, and ultimately expand. So working with some individual studios that grew to multi-location and franchises.
Nice. So you were able to take all this experience and move it forward into what you're creating now with Walla. How did you go about? How did it come about with your co-founders? Like, how did that?
Yeah. Yeah, so my experience actually doing some consulting work is how we met. A mutual friend of ours introduced me to Doug when he was starting another kind of fitness app startup, and he brought me on as an advisor in the early stages, just as one of the kind of industry experts in the field. And it was very obvious to me early on, he was an experienced founder. He knew how to run a business. He was very, very smart in the way he approached kind of the go-to-market strategy and understanding product market fit. And I really just felt like humbled to work alongside him during that process. And we stayed in touch. And, you know, actually that startup of his was purchased by MindBody Online very shortly after he started. I want to say maybe 14 months after they originally started. So they had a quick turnaround, great exit. And he was the SVP of consumer at MindBody for at least a couple of years until they were purchased by Vista. So during that time, I was actually on a contract with MindBody Online, building an online community for all the business owners that use their software. And we were able to, you know, reconnect and see each other a little bit more. And ultimately, after we both kind of I've wrapped up my contract with MindBody. Doug wrapped up his time there at the business, and you know, I don't think either one of us were in a rush to do anything. And so maybe it was about a year later that we decided to start Walla together.
Nice. So another question that I often have for entrepreneurs, what's it like to go out and raise seed capital? What's that process like, and what was your experience?
Well, my experience was definitely interesting because it was my first go around raising capital. It was not Doug's first go around, so I was lucky to have a partner that had been there, done that. But he was not shy about throwing me to the wolves on it, which I'm grateful for. You know, I have a sales background. Yeah, exactly. I have a sales background, and it's the greatest job in the world to get to sell something that you're this passionate about, right? So from that aspect, I loved it. But I will say, you know, being a woman going into raising money is a very different experience, I think, because oftentimes I was the only woman in the room. Although I will say when we raised our seed round the second time around, I saw that change a little bit. Probably 4 or 5 of the venture firms we spoke with were, you know, had women at the table as well. So it was exciting to see that change a little bit. But could be, you know, seen as intimidating for somebody who hasn't gone through the process before, for sure. I think from the perspective of really figuring out what the investors are interested in, you know, they very clearly want to understand if we were founders that were reliable, had experience, and could be trusted. Because at the end of the day, especially early on, they're buying us. We raised with Social Leverage was one of our early investors, and you know, they were really led to believe in us. It was more about understanding that there was an opportunity in an industry and that we were the right people to go after it. So it's almost more about selling ourselves and why we're the right people to take on, you know, a big opportunity or a big challenge. And one of the benefits for Doug and myself is that we're just really great complements for each other. We have very clearly different skill sets and different kind of areas of genius in the company. And I think it rounds us out really well. Along with our CTO, Matt, who's also one of our co-founders. He came on very early on in the process. And, you know, I came in with the industry piece and kind of the sales aspect. Matt is the tech genius who was going to be able to build the software from the ground up. And then Doug is the really experienced, amazing operator who also has this unbelievable creative side to him. He's also our key designer. So
Wow.
we're lucky to have somebody who somehow has both sides of his brain, you know, that he can work
Right.
really well. He's not just left or just right dominated. So that's been really, really a blessing.
And so the name Walla, is there any story behind that?
You know, funny enough, we kind of went back and forth over names for a long time. Name was one of the hardest things for us. But Walla really was kind of a play on the word wallaby, on the animal, a wallaby. So we really wanted to find something that felt vibrant and joyful and kind of forward thinking. And one of the creative people that we work with had said, wallaby is like this cute, joyful, vibrant animal that jumps and bounds and leaps all over the place. And Walla is really just leaps and bounds ahead of the competition from the perspective of kind of moving forward and forward thinking and looking at where the industry is moving. So we loved that. And also we have this small benefit of it kind of sounds like voila when you say it a lot of the time. So we really fell in love with it. I did also want a short name, so it was
That makes
perfect
sense.
when we found it.
Yeah, I love it. So circling back to the industry, like just exactly how large is the industry and how segmented and fragmented did you find it?
Right. So boutique fitness in the US alone, we see different numbers, but there are somewhere around between 50 and 70,000 boutique studios in the US. So some of those are franchises, some of them are mom and pop, but a really big opportunity here in our country. And that's really, the industry outside of the US is about 3 to 5 times that. So we see numbers ranging from 200,000 to 220,000 studios around the world. And we see a tremendous opportunity from an international perspective. There are quite a few countries that really have struggled with finding platforms to support their businesses, strictly because a lot of the providers out there didn't have payment platforms that were really good at localizing or didn't translate well in other languages. So we've built from the get-go with, the idea of being a global company in mind. And, everything we're building is to be, localized, to be able to be translated from a currency perspective and from a language perspective. So we really see a big opportunity. And some of the areas that have really exploded, Asia, China, South Korea, the UK and Germany are actually two of the countries in Europe that have really grown from a boutique fitness perspective, and then Australia, New Zealand as well. So we're kind of watching globally and getting to see how the world is recovering from COVID, not just the US.
So circling back to COVID, and you're talking about, like, I don't know what the right word is for, like the downsizing or the trend where people were closing. How's the rebuild been? Or is it faster than you expected? Is it about what you expected? How's the recovery kind of going?
Right. Yeah, I think everybody expected this industry to just be crushed by COVID. And what's been amazing to observe is how scrappy these studio owners were. I mean, some of them within a week of their studios being shut down had already launched a virtual offering, a full suite of classes that they were live streaming or a video on demand library. So they were able to maintain membership in a lot of situations, maybe not at, the full capacity that they typically would, but enough to keep the doors open. They were able to negotiate with their landlords. Some of them had deferred rent. And that's not to say some studios didn't close. We actually did see about 17 numbers are coming out right now that about 17% of brick and mortar fitness studios closed during COVID. But many of them have actually launched online virtual studios. They saw that they were able to maintain a certain percentage of their revenue by running virtual classes. And they realized that the overhead they were carrying with their fitness studio was really not necessary for the brick and mortar space. And with that in mind, we really decided to make virtual an equal citizen in Walla. So whether you're a brick and mortar studio, whether you're a virtual only studio, or whether you're somewhere in between, kind of hybrid where you're live streaming your in-person classes and then offering a video on demand library. We've created Walla to support those studios and really make sure that they can operate in a really streamlined way and that their consumers don't have this kind of bulky, duct tape together experience when they try to take classes or purchase a membership.
So I hadn't even considered that. So it's interesting on the virtual side with the whole remote work and the remote capital raising and everybody remote. Yeah, remote fitness. What kind of opportunity do you see there? Do you see that as, I know you said equal citizen, which is, I think that's the right term there, but how do you, is that like a completely separate growth market for you? Like
Yeah.
how do you tackle that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we watched over, I mean, the headlines were when we first went into, the first month of COVID, like the gym is dead and nobody's ever walking back into a gym after knowing what we know now about germ spreading and how crazy everybody's gotten wiping down their foods. But we've actually seen, the pendulum swung so far to the virtual side of things. I mean, Peloton exploded, Tonal, the Mirror, we saw all of these digital at-home offerings just really explode. As well as studios offering their virtual fitness experiences, Apple launching virtual fitness products. But the pendulum really has swung back pretty far. What we've seen just from a data perspective is that 60% of people are very comfortable going back full-time to studio. About 20% is comfortable with staying at home only. And then there's another percentage of people who really just want the hybrid experience now. They've gotten comfortable because they're working from home with, maybe not having that 20-minute commute to their fitness class on the way to work in the morning. They can take the live stream version of the class a couple days a week, and then maybe a couple days a week go to the in-person experience. So it's a bit all over the map, and studios are definitely working really hard to maintain the different offerings at the moment. Kind of the big yet to be seen though is really now measuring about a year's worth of data where there were both offerings, or almost a year's worth of data where there was the in-person and the virtual experience, and seeing where most people are leaning. But the good thing is, and something that we've really taken into consideration in Walla, studios have the ability to charge different amounts for these classes. They can have a whole new revenue stream, a whole new product line that before was non-existent for them. So we see this as not just, helping the industry move forward, but actually increasing the profit potential for these businesses.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. One of the things that interests me is some people, I think the growth there would be insane because with the technology that we have today and like your app for the studio owners, like there's some people that would like to get fit, but they just don't want to go to the gym they don't want to be around other people while working out. So I could see that this would be
Absolutely.
kind of a boon to that type of industry because the technology is getting better and you have the studio and you have the instructor like we are live right now. I can see how that would be amazing.
Yeah.
So let me go back to a little bit of your entrepreneurial
Sure.
journey. I know you had a background in sales, and so are there any kind of entrepreneurial hacks or tips that you've discovered that they help you stay focused and productive as you're building out the business?
Focused and productive. Sleep matters. I tried the other side of that for a while. I quickly realized that I am not the person who's built to run on 3 hours of sleep a night, although that was definitely needed for certain periods of time in the startup journey. But I also really realized where I was most productive in my day. I think that was something because of the long hours and the do it all yourself. We were a very small team for a while, and I realized very quickly that I am highly productive in the morning and very productive at the end of the day. But the middle of the day is kind of my time I need to leave for the mundane tasks that don't take as much of my brain power because I was never going to be as sharp. So I think understanding personally, everybody has like those windows of time during their day where they're going to be, really on their game. So if, for example, scheduling calls with potential investors or prospective beta clients, I really wanted to make sure those were when I was like, game on, let's do it. I am awake and alert and ready to rock. But I think it's a lot of self-awareness. You spend a lot of time by yourself figuring out how to get the work done.
Staying with the entrepreneurship theme, and as a founder, are there any other entrepreneurs or founders out there that you kind of look up to, that you get inspiration from?
Yeah. I mean, on a personal level, I have a couple dear friends that have just been amazing to watch as, as they've kind of grown in their entrepreneurial journeys. But on just names that people would recognize, Sarah Blakely is always somebody that I look up to from Spanx. I think even though it's a totally, it's a consumer product, totally different world. She's had such an amazing attitude and has been so inspiring to so many female entrepreneurs out there. She's been very real and open with her entrepreneurial journey. And, I've followed along for quite a while. And I think she's kind of become this poster child now for a lot of women who were frankly really scared to take the leap themselves. And it's understandable seeing, how much especially the world of, fundraising and money is dominated by men, and it kind of feels like an old boys club sometimes. But she does a lot of inspiring work, so she's definitely one.
Yeah, love her myself. Are there any kind of websites, blogs, news sites, or apps that you use to help you out in the business that you find you're relying on day to day?
From like a technology perspective, just helping us manage the business.
Yeah, like that, or looking for other ideas and advice. Like where do you get some of those?
Oh, okay. Other ideas and advice. I'm going to be perfectly honest and say we have been so heads down that I have not been looking for other ideas and advice for a little while.
Okay.
I will say, quite frankly, that being on the Social Leverage monthly calls, they put together a really amazing call every month. That's just like a get together of the founders that are in their portfolio. And just being on those is super inspiring. Doug and I both get great ideas from the other founders, whether it be for tips on recruiting engineers, which is always a challenge, or different platforms for managing projects. That probably has been our biggest source of inspiration. And also, I would say just in general, kind of networking. And just the other night, I was at a San Diego venture group event and being able to meet some of the other founders and venture funds here in San Diego. Actually, it was all of California, I believe. And so getting to meet some of them and hear what's happening in the industry. It's been really interesting.
So when you're meeting other founders and you're in the startup world,
mm-hmm.
were you, and you kind of started, you kind of went full tilt in March of 2020, right at the peak.
Mm-hmm.
So you hadn't had that experience before, and now it's kind of opening up.
Right. The networking aspect, you mean, being able to meet other founders? Yeah, honestly, it felt so great. Like I felt like I wanted to hug everybody there. It's like actual people. No, I mean, I feel super lucky. And in fact, I should have said this earlier on when you asked about people that inspire me. One of our investors actually has an amazing organization here in San Diego called Ad Astra. Her name's Allison Long Patine, and she works primarily with female founders and has done a lot of work in just kind of keeping them networked even during COVID, whether it be virtual or doing some quick boot camps in person. And so, I definitely am a people person and I need that in-person energy. So it's nice to get back to it for sure.
Yeah. And so finally, just a question. So normally I ask in general, but because you're unique and as a female founder, and I know you get your inspiration from Sarah, but for other female founders that are looking up to you along your startup journey, what's one lesson that you think would be very beneficial to any other female out there who's looking at starting a journey like this and building their own company?
I actually heard this ages ago when I was kind of early in my sales career. I'll never forget it. I was at a networking event, and there were a couple different CEOs on stage, one of whom was a woman, and she said, ladies in the room, I just want you to know it's a lie. You cannot have it all. And we were all like, what? Stop it. Don't like crush our dreams. And she said, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this for you. I had to give up a lot to be here. And she said, I'm not gonna say you can't have it all ever. You just can't have it all at the same time. And it's been something I've thought about quite a bit. I'm a mom, I've got 2 kids. Doug is a parent, he's got 3 daughters. Our co-founder, Matt, has 3 kids too. So we're all juggling, right? Like we all have so much, and so much feels critically important at every moment of the day. So I often stop and think like, okay, I can't have it all right in this moment. What is it that I can give 100% to right now? And I'm not gonna lie, I mean, that has meant sometimes that I don't get to put my kids to bed, or sometimes that I'm not on a phone call that I really want to be, but it's because I've got something really important that I should be with my children for. And it's really made me think about trying to be 100% into whatever I'm in that moment, because that's my chance to have it all with that specific aspect, with my career, with my children, with my friends, whatever it might be. It's really encouraged me to be all in that moment. So I agree. When I've tried to have it all and quote balance it all, it just doesn't work. It's me, on my phone trying to finish an email while my child's in my ear and I'm trying to make dinner. Nothing gets done right. Something boils over. I misspell something in an email and my kid ends up crying. So it's definitely the lesson in whatever you choose for that moment, just do it all and be all in right there. And then there'll be time to have the rest later.
Yeah. Well, that's very inspirational, and I appreciate you coming on and talking with me about your journey. And I wish you all the best of luck, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot from you in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great to chat with you, and hopefully next time we'll be able to get Doug on with us, or Matt, some of our other co-founders. I certainly did not do this alone.